What really happened between the Penguin and Sofia Falcone? A few days ago, we had the premiere of the Penguin series, a series that continues the events that happened in the movie The Batman, which was released in 2022 and starred Robert Pattinson. This series has many very interesting elements, one of them being without a doubt the main antagonist, Sofia Falcone, who is the daughter of the recently deceased Carmine Falcone. When we saw her appear in the series, we could immediately feel that this would not be just another character, but that she goes beyond that and would be the biggest obstacle that our protagonist would be facing, at least for the time being. But there was something that caught our attention that managed to stand out in this character. This being one of the conversations he had with Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, mostly because of the latter's reaction and rather how it made him feel. This leaves us wondering several things. Why did Oz react this way? What are these characters really hiding? In this video, we'll be talking about what happened between the Penguin and Sofia Falcone. And for more videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Welcome to the Oasis Geek. Before we start with this video, and to celebrate the arrival of the Penguin series, we will be giving away a Funko Pop from the Batman movie. To participate, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel and leave a comment telling us who is your favorite character from the DC universe and why. The winner will be announced on October 31st. In order to understand this whole situation, we must first refresh our memory a bit by revisiting the interactions of our protagonist, with who seems to be our main antagonist. It all starts when the Penguin reports to work and is interrupted, when the family communicates with him through a phone call. This call leads Oz to meet with Johnny Vitti, Carmine Falcone's nephew, and Milos Grappa, Carmine Falcone's most trusted and loyal friend, who was also his bodyguard. In that meeting, we saw that they were discussing that as a result of the catastrophe caused by the Riddler, they will be moving the plant's operations to Robbinsville, as the situation there is much better to move their product, unlike how Gotham currently is. Oz, seeing how little he has and how much it has cost him, tries to convince his bosses not to go through with this decision, and it leads him to make one of the biggest mistakes he could make. He starts talking about a new substance that would fix all the problems they were currently having, obviously referring to the fact that they were losing a lot of money because the merchandise had been flooded and contaminated. This interested his superiors a lot, but the one who was most intrigued by it was Sofia Falcone, who at that moment was entering the room when she heard what our protagonist had to say. This takes him by surprise, since Oz believed that Sofia was locked up in the Arkham Asylum. She asks him if he knows where her brother Alberto Falcone is, since they have not heard from him since he said he would leave not before forbidding his bodyguards to accompany him, and he never returned to the house. Oz manages to evade the question, but Sofia follows him by telling him that he has not answered her question. The Penguin replies that he hasn't seen him, and when he finally thinks he'd get away from Sofia, she invites him to grab a bite to eat and catch up on their lives. From the beginning, we know that Sofia is very interested in Oswald, especially since she heard him talk about that new substance. We could say that Sofia from that moment on would start with an obsession, which we will be seeing later in the course of the series. While they are in the restaurant, we see that Sofia is enjoying her meal, and Oz seems to be very attentive to everything Sofia Falcone says and does. It's more than inevitable to notice the Penguin's discomfort, which led us to wonder, why is he so uncomfortable with Sofia? Obviously, we have several reasons why Oz acts this way. The first being that he is next to a person who was locked up in a psychiatric hospital, so we know that in a way, Sofia is an unstable person, and at any moment she could snap. The other being that Oz was the one who made Alberto disappear as he took his life when he shot him, because Alberto mocked him and his aspirations of wanting to be the most important figure in Gotham's underworld. Knowing this and seeing that Alberto Falcone's sister is suspicious of him makes him think that he is in serious trouble. This being for more reasons than you think. We see how Sofia talks a bit about what she thinks others should be thinking about her. She also talks about how they nicknamed her the Hangman, and that they made her read all the articles and watch all the stories related to her. And she notices how Oz is tense being alone with her. Sofia mentions to Oswald that she would hate for him to be nervous around her, because no matter what he thinks, she doesn't blame him. Sofia goes on to tell him that if he hadn't gone to her father, and that he left him no choice. Showing resentment, Oz tells Sofia that he is sure he could have done something, which leads to her interrupting him and changing the subject by mentioning her brother again. It was originally thought that Sofia was talking about how she got caught, and that Oz had a lot to do with her eventual lockup at Arkham Asylum, involving her now deceased father, Carmine Falcone. We obviously know that Sofia was locked up for being a serial killer known as the Hangman. Sofia earned this name as she carries out a series of murders by hanging her victims and leaving clues similar to a game called the Hangman. These murders were her attempt at revenge for the downfall of her family and the death of her father, making her one of Gotham's most calculating and vengeful enemies. But will this be the case? I think they could be referring to the night of Carmine Falcone's death, where Oz is seen calling him a rat, and to enjoy his night at Blackgate as it could be his last. Carmine asks the Penguin if he is supposed to be a big man now. Oz tells him that maybe he is. This leads to Carmine responding by telling him that to him, he was always a cripple in an empty suit. This comment infuriates Oz, and as he draws his gun, he tells him he will paint his ass, and a gunshot is heard. Immediately, the officers present knock Oz down, and he says he swears he didn't shoot. We know it obviously wasn't the Penguin who ended Carmine's life, and I think Sofia knows he's not the person to blame for it. But that doesn't take away from the fact that at the last minute, Oz saw his chance to be the new leading crime figure in Gotham, wanting to take everything the Falcones have built. This lets us know that Sofia is most likely referring to what happened that night. Partially, perhaps Oz wanted to play the victim, saying he could have done more to protect Sofia's father and save his life. But she is more cunning than we have been shown so far. I have no doubt that she knew exactly how everything happened that night, especially what happened in public seconds before her father died. As Oz converses with her, he realizes he couldn't underestimate her, just as Sofia doesn't underestimate him, since she knows what he is capable of. Of course, we won't fully know what they are referring to as they are only one episode into the series, and we still have a long way to go. To know what they are referring to, we would have to wait and see what happens in the history behind these characters, since they could eventually go deeper into this topic. And especially knowing that in this series, we will see retrospective scenes where they will give us context of the things that are happening, and how exactly they are connected with the past. Something that does support the theory that they are referring to the events that led to Sofia being locked up is that later she mentions to him that her brother said he was going to the Oz Club the night he disappeared, and that it was all part of the plan he had created. Not only that, but this plan was a secret between the two of them. Or so she thought, until she heard the Penguin talk about revolutionizing the drug business. And it doesn't make sense to her. We see how Sofia asks him how he knows about her brother's plan and why he hinted that it was his. She goes on to say that it's chutzpah because he should be stupidly blind, or overconfident that her brother won't come back to claim it, and asks him once again if he knows where her brother is. Oz plays his victim role, but we know that Sofia doesn't underestimate him and is still suspicious of him. Her intuition is what leads her to capture one of the young men who were trying to steal the tires from his vehicle, and he confesses to her everything he saw the night her brother disappeared. As she gets rid of the teenager in front of Oz, she asks Oz if what he wanted was for his reputation to precede him. She goes on to say that he is very good with his words to get out of trouble, even if it ends up costing someone else's life, especially in those situations. But his father is no longer around to make up for it with fancy suits, stupid cars, and a club that makes him think he owns it. Sofia goes on to tell him to think hard about what he's going to tell her and asks if she's crazy, if it's all in her head. Sofia asks Oz to tell her that she's too emotional, that she has an overactive imagination, and that she shouldn't take things personally. But he should first tell her that her brother is still alive. At this point, we already know that Sofia knows the truth. She always suspected Oz's true intentions and knows that he was capable of ending her brother's life. But the other thing she mentions seem to be words that Oz had said earlier, where Sofia had caught him doing something suspicious, but that her father decided to believe the Penguin rather than her. Words that stuck in her mind forever and made her start to resent the Penguin for always finding a way to get his way. As I mentioned, we don't know exactly what happened between these two in the past, and if the conversation in the restaurant has anything to do with a situation that happened between them until we continue advancing in the series, and the series shows us or explains everything that happened between them in the past. But tell me, what do you think about all this? What do you think Sofia and Oz were referring to in this conversation? Do you think it's something related to Oz's actions with Sofia's imprisonment in Arkham Asylum? Or do you think it's related to the night of Carmine Falcone's death? And for more videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You are on The Oasis Geek.